Hey Club Scouts, it's Michael, and we are doing our very first live show at Contact in the Desert, a giant UFO-themed convention in Indian Wells, California. Our show is on Saturday, June 1st at 2:30, featuring an amazing expert guest that we will announce in the coming weeks. Go to contactinthedesert.com for tickets, and don't forget to pack a cellophane packet full of interdimensional food pills because you never know what could happen. We'll see you there.
It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two.
That was perfect timing.
Let's do this.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I am your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
And our super producer,
Riley Bray.
And we have our mascot, Nova the dog, sitting here with us as well. We're all excited because we've had a couple weeks off. You haven't. You've been getting new shows, but we took a couple weeks off, and I was in Kansas City. I just got back from another paranormal road trip with friend of the show, W. Dave
back.
Keith. It was pretty cool, guys. I'm just going to get right into it. We drove from Kansas City to St. Louis, and then from St. Louis down to Nashville. And on the trip, we stopped in Hopkinsville and Kelly and found the location of where the original farmhouse was for the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblin encounter in 1955.
Are you serious?
So awesome.
I mean, the farmhouse is no longer there. It's just like, because that was like a tiny house with like an outhouse out back.
Wow.
There's like a park where it is now, and every summer they do the little Green Men Days.
No way.
It's in the middle of nowhere. It was a beautiful drive, but it was really cool. Hopkinsville downtown is like really kind of spooky, old cool buildings. We stopped at the visitor center and talked to a very nice lady. All of this is going to be edited together, and we're going to throw up a special episode on the Patreon.
Oh, fantastic.
And we also hit Adams, Tennessee, where the Bell Witch Cave is.
Wow.
Unfortunately, because it's not May, the cave and the property was closed. But it was still fun to go through there and be like, this is where the Bell Witch story took place. So
I love that you do this.
Yeah,
this isn't your first one, right? You and Dave have done this before.
We've done Area 51. We've done Roswell.
I'm so jealous.
We've done the Redwood Forest.
Wow.
And, gone up to Willow Creek. Of course, you've been to Willow Creek. So it was nice. We hadn't been able to do a road trip for a couple of years just due to scheduling and everything. So it was nice to check off a couple new places. I really want to go to, and hopefully it'd be great to go with all you guys to, and today's guest, to the cryptozoology. You're going. The Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. I really want to go to. Lauren Coleman's. That's one of the next spots.
Awesome.
Anyway, so that was a really fun trip, and if you're a patron of the show, check out that episode. It'll be up sometime in the next week or so.
And
over
if you're
on
not, become one.
The other side
stuff up there.
Well, I have to ask while I jump. Do you have any paranormal activity that happens while you're going on
That's a
these?
good question.
Yeah, this one was pretty quiet. There
Lame.
wasn't. The thing is,
Just kidding.
the one thing is that I had 2 weeks after our road trip to Roswell, I had one of the most strange paranormal encounter I've ever had.
Right.
So sometimes I wonder if things kind of follow me home or follow me back.
Hitchhikers.
And
Do you sage? Do you do any rituals?
I don't. I guess I probably
because you want them
should.
to show up.
Yeah, we also went to another place that Hopkinsville is the burial site of Edgar Casey.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to his gravesite, and that was a cool old
Sleeping
graveyard.
Prophet.
Yeah. So, we didn't have anything weird really happen. We did, and Riley, hopefully you'll pay attention and find out, we did do a thing in the car where we had left, I think, the graveyard, and we were talking on the mics while driving, and we said if anyone followed us,
Oh, you're looking for some EVPs.
yeah, and
Oh, cool.
Dave had the cans on, and he swears he heard something.
Oh, cool.
Both times. So we'll have to listen and find out if there was something there. So
that's exciting.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay, enough about me. Let's talk about today's guest. You may know her from the dozen upon dozens film and TV roles in projects such as General Hospital, NCIS LA, True Detective, The Other Woman, and The Purge, just to name a few, or as the host of the podcast, That One Audition.
One of my favorites.
Please give a warm Club Scout salute to ALYSHIA OSCHSE.
Yay!
I am so excited.
We're so happy.
We are so excited.
We're excited to have you.
You guys, I started binging the moment you asked me to be on the show. Nobody was home, and I was doing the dishes. Is this where I just jump right in? Because I need to tell you.
Go,
I need
girl.
to tell you what you guys infused into my life, which I was so grateful for. Your show, period.
Thank
Just
you.
your show. But I listened to probably 2 or 3 episodes doing the dishes, and I remember I looked up at one point and I'm like, man, why have I never been contacted?
I love that.
Like legit mad. Like why?
Is there something about me?
Is there something about me? Because I'll get ghosts and stuff, but specifically like UFO alien shit. That's what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Go about my finish. I'm doing laundry, doing all the mommy things that I need to do before I go to bed. All of a sudden, it was close to 11 at night. I get an unknown phone call, and I got chills up and down my spine. I was like, oh no. Like all of a sudden I flipped and I was like, I don't need this right now.
Yeah.
Not right now, because I think I just listened to the one about the little boy where he remembered like their robes on the carpet.
Oh,
like that
yeah,
detail.
the listener files, yeah.
So I didn't pick it up. It went to voicemail and I brought it. I have it. It was on 4/4 and it's exactly 4 seconds. And I can hear 4 beeps in it.
Oh, wow.
Like the hair stood up all over my body.
Numerology.
Wait,
Yes.
what? You have it with you?
I have it with
Play
me.
it.
Well, I don't know if you can hear it on.
If you hold it up
Just
to
put it
the
on speaker, brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, this is Lucifer. I only have a few seconds. Oh,
No, seriously.
time's up. I've got to go.
Okay, let's see. If
Wait,
we can
I have
put
so
it
many
on.
questions.
Let's see if
That's
it'll
right.
play
I'm
up
an
here.
alien named Lucifer.
It's confusing.
And I was like, oh my God, could it happen that quickly?
I'm at 666 66
It's
666.
so quick.
Extension.
Do you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Extension
Play it again.
666.
All right, quit talking.
Okay, let's see.
Do you know ALYSHIA and I played husband and wife in a movie once?
Didn't know
I
that.
think he did it to the whole beat of the.
Okay,
Oh,
let's
okay,
listen
all
one
right.
more
Sorry.
time.
I don't know if you're going to be. I think we're going to have to do like some.
We'll probably edit it in, but we
Dead
can
air
pretend like it's
scares
happening
me.
for real.
Okay.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah,
that's
that's
You
true.
hear
tricky.
the-
I
you
do.
hear
That's-
the- It's like
weird.
Morse code-ish. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like it. It could be nothing. I
it
still don't
could
like
be
it.
Nothing.
It's not nothing.
I just love
It's
that
something.
I asked for it and then freaked out
Yeah.
as soon as it was
Yeah.
like, sure, we'll just give you a call, because then I started realizing, oh yeah, it needs to come over
That's
frequency.
how it works. Always present, ever there.
Yeah.
Well, and there are tons of encounters that we've talked about with in John Keel's investigations and in the Grinning Man stories of strange phone calls, people getting weird monotone voices
Yeah,
over
that's
the
right.
phone and weird stuff. We're going to have a little bit of that, not quite over the phone, but we're going to have some strange contact stuff in
Wow.
today's High Strangeness as well.
Oh,
We'll
I
get
that's
to
wild.
that in a little bit, but that's spooky. So, Miss Ochse,
Yes.
Ms. Ochse, what is your personal paranormal history? You said you've been contacted before, you think?
Yeah,
Ghosty stuff?
I go back. I have where do we want to start? Like a sentimental ghost story?
Wherever you
or
wanna go.
a
Yeah.
super scary or
like it.
super
We like 'em all.
stony.
Oh,
I
well,
got scary,
Michael loves
stony,
stony
or
ones.
strange.
you got the
Let's go with
three S's.
Those are our 3
Scary.
nicknames
Yeah.
here. Who's
Scared,
who?
stony, and sentimental.
Yeah.
Which one am I?
You're scared.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sentimental.
And Riley Stone.
I got one for all of you
Man,
guys.
you're
So
right.
should we reverse engineer? The last time I saw I see things a lot and I have a lot of auditory. And it took me a while to realize what my auditory was. And now I'm comfortable talking about it because I'm hoping a mentor will come out of the woodwork and be like, oh, this is what your auditory paranormal thing is trying to tell you. But my stony experience, this was just over Christmas. And I was with somebody who was not stoned. We walk out to the garage.
That must have been a bummer.
A total
Loser.
total bummer for them. But it was great for the story when we walked back into
I meant
Abby and
bummer for
AJ's
you.
house.
Oh yeah.
So everybody is, inside in the living room party. They asked us to go get something out of the garage. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go get it. I walk out, and my girlfriend's behind me. And as I walked in, I was talking to her, so I was over my shoulder. And when I turned back around, I ran smack into a shapeshifter of sorts. So it was
What?
So it was like all black, like it was like a presence.
Whoa.
But
Shadow person.
But a shadow, but we scared each other. Like
hello.
That's
like
amazing.
I went like, "Wah!" And it like shifted over to that, and then I turned around. I looked at my friend who was not stoned. I was like, "What was that?" And she was like, "That it moved. You scared it
Whoa.
too."
She saw it too.
She saw it too. So we went back in, and of course, I'm a very animated high person, stoned person. So I'm like telling them like, "Yeah, okay, Lish, okay." And then
Right.
Kate came in. She was like, "No, legit, something was there and then just moved."
Did you get a good look at it
Freaky.
before it?
Yeah, it was. So the attic was opened, but the hole was further like down in the
Okay.
garage. There was no light in there. The light was kind of on two fluorescents on parallel sides, and in the middle of it, it was almost looked like a tornado that wasn't moving.
Oh, interesting.
So it was like but it was
You
was
got a
black.
good look at this thing.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
a cone, but it was like cone shaped.
It was bigger at the top, and it kind of narrowed down into the bottom.
Okay.
Weird.
But it moved just as quickly as I moved to the right, it moved to the left. Like we did not want to run into each other.
Was it? Were there any humanoid characteristics? It
No.
didn't have a head or shoulders or arms or anything
No, it
like
was just
that.
a dark opaque,
like a
but
mist
still,
or a
yeah,
smoke?
like a mist. That's a
Weird.
good way of putting it. A mist. It was so trippy, but I wasn't scared, so I don't. It wasn't like it didn't feel demonic. It didn't feel like the negative.
Whoa.
Hey.
Hey,
Speaking of
Dino.
contact,
Auditory.
They were like, we're ready for the auditory. Now
Yeah.
we want to speak to you in defense of the mist.
It's Lucifer again. I forgot to leave my
again, just
my
I'm
address.
an alien. I'm not the devil. I know it's confusing.
He's like, I'm here for good. I'm here for good.
Whose house was it?
My sister's.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of presence, and people usually call me when they have presence. So I have a person now that comes out. I found a person that comes and like cleanses areas for me and cleanses me.
Wow.
Because of my scary strange, I lived in a house up in Bel Air, and
Brag.
in the old Bel Air. No, total brag. I
Mike.
lived in this house, and the creepy part about, but just to set like the old Bel Air, like up, basically like kind of up here, where it's like the houses are older. You're like you feel like you're in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So not the flatlands,
Right.
like
up in the canyons.
like up in the canyons. And this house, from the moment we moved in, there was something off. I lost my job. My husband lost his job. We couldn't get jobs for a while. Money issues were happening. Anybody that came over, just weird things were happening. My mom came and spent the night, who doesn't believe in any of this stuff. In the room that she was staying in, the printer was going on and off. The lights were going on and off. And at 3 a.m, my mom was knocking on my bedroom door, crying.
There's that time again.
Yeah, the 3 and was like, come in here. There's something going on. So I went in there and I was like, Mom, okay, just say this with me. If you're from the light, you can stay. If you're from the dark, go away. And we chanted that for a while. And it was kind of cool too, also, because it was the first time my mom ever believed in everything that I've believed in.
Right,
So
yeah.
Also, how often are you just like sitting with your mom, just chanting together?
Yeah, right.
Totally.
Fun bonding experience.
I like that phrase. We should put that above the door
Yeah.
or
From
something.
the light, you can stay. From all the people
What
that
if you
tried.
like took it to another level? Like, we need to get some blood on the floor and form a pentagram. We've got to get this thing out of here, Mom. What? No.
You're in a
Mom's
very
ready to drip
biblical
blood.
state of mind today, aren't you?
Yes.
But it kept
Dark
going
arts.
on. So then I unplugged the printer. I turned on all the lights. And I was like, what else can they possibly do? And then they started flickering the lights. So that's when I was like, we're going downstairs and we're watching a movie. We turned on, open up all the blinds. We turned on, I don't know, some rom-com.
Oh, okay, I thought you were like wanting to watch The Omen.
Yeah, I'm like, we're going to
You're like,
go
guys,
for it.
perfect time to watch a spooky movie.
It was
Like
spending-
failure to launch will get this thing out of here.
Let's McConaughey the shit right on out.
It's the only way.
It's like your Van Helsing weapon set is just 10 terrible McConaughey rom-coms.
All right.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing if that's what it is. I failed to leave out this part of the story for weeks upon weeks before that. I would wake up in the middle of the night and I could feel something start at my feet and work all the way up me.
It's no good.
And then I wouldn't be able to scream or talk or move. It was paralysis. So I looked through like sleep paralysis and like try to figure out like, all that stuff. It still wasn't working. And then, or I would wake up and feel it here.
Next to your head.
Yeah, next to my head. I asked for messages. I'm like, clearly there's something, but it always just felt like it was trying to smother me. So then after my mom's experience, I went out and I was telling people about it because I was like, this is just bananas. And I ended up talking to a friend of mine who's the feng shui guy. And I kind of mocked him. I'm like, you're the feng shui guy? Like, what does that even mean?
How are you going to help me with my ghosts?
And he was like, yeah. And then I looked him up. I'm like, oh, like you're a legit guy. He came over, walked through the house and was like, this is where stuff is getting stuck in the house. This is where, move this piece of furniture
That's
to
amazing.
this.
It's like your furniture's all wrong.
Yeah, it's all wrong. But then he did a seance at the end.
Oh, okay.
He put on the beads. He had this bell, like this big 6'4" guy. And he started chanting Sanskrit. And I was like, what is happening right now? And he was like, as I go...
You're like, I'm going to put on Sahara starring Matthew McConaughey.
You do your thing, I'll do mine.
Let's see who gets results first. Meanwhile, all the furniture's on the ceiling.
It was actually McConaughey. McConaughey is the feng shui guy.
Yeah, totally.
But as he was chanting, he was like, when I go this way, think about everything negative that has happened in this house. I was like, I don't know if I really... Okay.
Wow.
And he's like, and when the bell stops, we're going to switch directions and go positive. And I was like, sure, okay. So then he started going the negative direction. So I was thinking about the jobs lost, my mom, this thing that's been on me. And then the whole entire house shut down. And I opened my eyes and I looked at him. And at this point, I have tears like spraying, fearful tears just projecting.
When you say shut down, like all the power went out?
All the power went out. And then I looked out
This is insane.
my living room. The whole street still had power. Like my neighbor, I could see their lights on. I was like, what is happening? And he wouldn't say anything.
Wow.
And then he went back. He went the positive way. And probably 5 seconds back in, then it all powered back up. When we were done, I was like, what was that? He was like, well, something was here. It's gone. We don't need to talk about it anymore. And I'm like, but we kind of do.
I want to know. Yeah.
Next day, I booked 3 jobs. My husband got a job. We had a roommate at the time who got a job. People were walking in our house like, God, it feels amazing in here.
you
What
serious?
is it? Yeah.
Whoa.
It was that immediate. And since then, I haven't had.
I got to get this dude's number.
Yeah,
we
we
need
have
to
to-
talk.
We're all like, we'll get that
Right?
after the show.
We'll get
yeah.
that. But that was that was super scary. And then I have a lot of sentimental, like my grandpa, the first ghost I saw, I was 7. My grandpa had passed. We didn't get to say goodbye to him. And we were at a park and all of a sudden I looked up and there he was. And he dressed very odd. He was a tube sock kind of guy, like little gym shorts.
Love that.
Wife beater, Italian man. Like he just was a very unique looking person. And I remember looking and he was like waving and he kept pointing at my mom. And so I hit my mom. She looked at me and started immediately crying. She was like, do you see what I see? And as we were talking, I was like, yeah. And then we looked back, gone. And we were in a park and it was a payphone. So the person was at the payphone saying like, hey, he wanted me to point at my mom as soon as and then he was gone. And that just started it. At 7, I kind of already was into this world. I was a twin and the twin didn't make it. And I think since I've been born, I'm like, there's something else out there.
Yeah.
Is the
Right.
best way I can describe it. And then my auditory thing started probably when I was 10.
Wow.
I get like
Wow.
thunder in my ears or that's the best way to describe it. Like when there's like a presence or if you and I are talking and you hit a chord, like I don't know how to describe it. Like it sounds cheesy when I say like authentic truth or authentic self, but if there is something that the universe is trying to align within you and you speak it, my ears
It
kind
rings
of
true.
Yeah, but that seems like a cheesy way of saying it. It just took me a long time to figure out that it wasn't scary. that it can be used for positive
Oh, wow.
as well. And my husband was the first person I ever told. I was like, I have this weird thing. I don't know how to channel it. But I also have I also get really strong hits. Like, unfortunately, like when AJ's dad got sick, I knew what day he was going to die. The day that we found out he was sick, he was like, he's dying December 1st. So sometimes you get like hits like that where I'm like, I don't want to know that.
Right.
But you know, it's we put on it, it's good and bad. I try to just be like, oh, okay, that's a sign. Or I'll get pretty strong downloads for people where I'm like, I don't know if I should tell you this, but if you want to know X,
Yeah.
Y,
That's
and
wild.
Z.
Yeah, you're tapped in somehow, some
But
way.
I can't
Yeah,
control
you have-
when it happens. That's the
Right.
thing.
You don't think that you could learn to sit down and be like, okay, let me focus in. I mean, there's got to be some
Yeah.
way to like
the-
tap into it when you want to.
I think
You need a Morpheus.
So. I need also to know how not to bring in so much of the bad, because I think when I'm really, really open, like my mom actually, I forgot one part of that story when she came back and all that weird stuff was happening in my house. That morning we'd gone to House of Intuition because she wanted to talk to her dad. And when she came out, she was hysterically crying like a toddler. And the lady was saging her and was like, I'm so sorry. It went really bad. And my mom still wouldn't tell me what. So I feel like I already had something around, and then I feel like my mom opened some portal and they came
Right.
in. So it's like, how do you know how to?
Do you think that you're attracting this stuff? Like, or do you think because you're connected, you're an easier channel? Like, you saw your grandfather first, it sounds like. Do you think that maybe, I don't know, like these spirit energies are like, okay, she's got a strong signal going, so let's, like, you're the Wi-Fi hotspot for them.
For
In other
sure.
words, do you feel?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I don't know. Like our wedding, like so many magical, weird. I just call myself a good witch. That's kind of how I think I'm just kind of tapped into. I think most women are very easily tapped in if you allow yourself to be. And my antenna might be more turned on at certain points than others. I don't know. I used to think it was weird, and now I'm like, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And my daughter has it. I'm starting to see.
Really?
Yeah.
She's how old?
3.
Okay. What kind? How's it manifesting with her?
Energies, how she senses energies. I can tell she might have the auditory, but she's very empathetic, but a different type of, like, a lot of people I think are empathetic, but she's got a sensitivity that I think might develop.
To
Right.
the umpteenth degree, yeah.
Yeah, she might. I
That's
mean, you
wild.
both sound like you're empaths for sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
That's Donalyn Champlin has that too, where she can pick
You
up
just-
on that.
You feel things. You're super sensitive to not only this world, but to the hidden world as well.
When I think the day that my mom told me that I was a twin, I think I was like 6. I remember looking up at the sky and being like, this makes sense.
Wow. You know
And-
who else lost their twin is a big hero of mine was Elvis Presley. He had twins.
I didn't know
they were
that.
part of twins, and yeah, he lost his twin brother on the birth as well. But that affected him his entire life, and he went on a quest for, I guess you could call it spirituality, for lack of a better term. For the remainder of his life, he was always questioning things and always like seeking out alternative theories, but he always felt a connection to his brother.
Yeah, I think I always coin it as a seeker. Like I'm very, very curious about angels and ghosts and paranormal and how we can communicate.
Me too.
And I've experienced a lot of death, so I think that to me has always been really. I just want to know if we can, and I communicate with a lot of people that have passed that are close to me. So that I try to keep the positive on it. But I mean, I was the weird kid. I wanted to be like a forensic pathologist. I was obsessed with death. I read all the books.
awesome.
Like there's this amazing book called Stiff.
Oh yeah.
Have you?
I haven't read it, but I know of it. Yeah.
It's hilarious, but it's the contributions that like death and cadavers have made on today's
Oh, yeah,
society.
sure.
And I think I read that at like
Yeah.
junior high or high school.
That's
Like,
wild. That's wild.
yeah, it's an odd trait for some people.
That's cool. So you're not put off by it or particularly scared of it. You just sort of.
I definitely get scared at certain times, but I am the seeker of it. Like I'm starting to really get into the moon stuff and doing
Yeah.
very witchery stuff around the full moon.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you? Didn't we have like a big blood moon
We did.
recently?
Yeah.
Did you do any rituals during the blood moon?
I did, yeah. I did.
Can you
What did I
talk
need-
about that?
I just get together with a lot of other girlfriends that are into this stuff, and we usually have stones, candles. This last one, we actually had, she calls herself like a genuine witch, and she came in and we did chants to the south, to the east, to the west, to the north, kind of like sealing the vibration and the amount of, I was so high just from tingling sensation, like where my body went.
Wow.
It was a pretty trippy experience, and to have that energy all together and the intention of the moon, I really truly believe in that. Like the astrology, like how we used to live by the planets and the stars and the moon, and now people are like, that's woo woo. I'm like, it became woo woo when religion came into play because they wanted to have structure and power. If we went back to the old times and we could do that, like,
Well, and when you're getting verifiable sensation feedback, you know what I mean? You're like, okay, I'm putting this out here. I'm actually, I'm observing different senses throughout my body. Something's happening,
yeah, I think so.
It's wild.
You know, Neil Young does all of his work based around the full moon.
Does he really?
Yeah.
That's what I'm starting to do.
He does he works out what he's going to do in the days leading up to the full moon, and then he does his recording and like that window of the full moon, and then kind of winds back down, and he just bases it on his cycle.
That's
So-
wild.
Yeah.
And to go along with that, women, their cycles are supposed to be 28 days. So it's like
Right.
the cycle of the moon. So there is a week that you should absolutely be resting. There's a week, like I'm in it now, I forget the exact term, where you're more magnetic and you should be out with people. And then there's an intentional week. And then there's a doing week, which is right before your rest week. I just started doing it in the last month, and it's making a massive difference.
That's so awesome.
Just in terms of energy or productivity?
Productivity,
Effectiveness.
effectiveness. Like I started noticing about a year ago, I book on weeks when I am ovulating. So it's like along with like the moon when like it's the brightest, and when it's like you're magnetic.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I book
tried-
on leap years every third or fourth year.
Do you
I'll
really?
book. No, I don't.
I get you.
but I'm starting to study it more because I feel like there's power in knowing.
Absolutely. I mean, for thousands of years, that's how we've run the planet, and then only recently we stopped paying attention to that. So.
Well, and it's also it's easier to miss too when you live in a city where there's so much light pollution you don't even see the stars. Sometimes you know what I mean. It's we do. Once you get out into the country and you look up, you're like, oh, wow, this is pretty awesome. And imagine how this looked 1,000, 2,000 years ago.
I miss that.
There's a place in...
You missed 2,000 years ago?
No, I miss being out like
Is there something you'd like to explain?
into a place where you can actually see the Milky Way rift and the stars and out here in LA, I go out onto my driveway like every night. You could see Orion.
Mommy, that weird neighbor's in his driveway.
But I look at the stars. There's a few of them you can see, but you're right.
Yeah.
There's not very many of them.
Well, I really want to go to. There's a place in southeastern Utah, the like corner. It's near Blythe, Utah, I think, and it's supposed to be one of the best night skies in the northern hemisphere, at least in the United States.
I would love to do that.
Me too.
It's supposed to be like the least amount of light pollution, and you can just see like the purple streak of the Milky Way and like the cosmos. It's just supposed to be gorgeous out there, and that's it's like a 10-hour drive from LA. But it's one of those that it's kind of like not close to anything.
Yeah.
So you've got to go just to do that. And I think there's like camping nearby. I think it's in a national park.
Yeah. It would be worth it.
I think it's Natural Land Bridges National Park is supposed to be. If you look up photos, it's supposed to be stunning. I really, really want to go out there sometime.
Well, and if you ever go overseas, I hiked Mount Sinai. And they have you hike in the middle of the night. I've never seen a night sky like that ever in my life. It was like stars upon, like you could see the depth of the stars.
Right.
Like this one is so close, and this one's it looked like a movie set.
Wow.
And as you were hiking, it's like you could almost reach out and grab them, and then you get to the top, you sit up there, and then you watch the sun kind of come up. and then come back down, which is absolutely
I
terrifying.
mean, how amazing would it be though, like back then, to be like, of course, like everything's dictated by the sky, because you're just surrounded by these amazing celestial bodies all the time. I mean, imagine what a difference than daytime and nighttime sky looked like.
Back then.
Yeah.
Well, that's supposedly where Moses got the 10 Commandments. I'm like, yeah, I'd get a lot of shit if I hiked up in the middle of the night, sat here for 20 seconds. Like the downloads I got just hiking up and then coming back down. Like you can't, how do you not have an openness? My husband and I talk about this a lot too. It's like back during that time, you would walk, as a man, you would have to go out and find food for your family. So you might like walk around for 2-3 hours in nature and be with your thoughts and be, philosophical, or just be silent and still. And now we're so active.
Walking meditation, yeah.
Yeah, now we can't, we wonder why we're so frustrated. Like, we don't have that space anywhere. We barely walk anywhere and our heads are down now on our phones.
I do like Instagram meditations where I just as I scroll through, my mind
I
just
do all my postings
goes.
based on the moon cycle.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Can you do that and see if you get more likes?
Yeah. I'm way more effective
Totally.
during a half moon.
That's wild.
I always post my selfies on a new moon. That is fascinating. So what advice do you give for men who aren't as connected, I guess, by the cycle just internally? Like what would you say if we wanted to be witches? What should we do?
I mean, I really think going along with the moon, like it's there's all over the internet. Just from the last couple of weeks that I've been looking, where if you look, where is the moon in its cycle, and then it tells you on the internet, like this is the intentional time to be setting it. I also think for men, it's just we're genetically different. Men are in a doing state of mind, and a masculine energy is a do, and the feminine energy is being and receiving. I think for a man in the modern day world, like we have to figure out a way to do less, which is like, how do you tell a man who's been programmed to be a provider or to do, or that's how they prove their masculinity or prove their manhood is by like, I have this job, I have this house, I have this car. It's a result-driven energy.
So what you're saying is it's okay if I spend all afternoon playing Battlefront 2 on my
Yes.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
Totally,
Meditation. I'm really responding to the do less.
Do okay, cool. I
less.
think I'm doing it.
I'm there.
I'm right.
I'm practically
I'm
there.
a witch.
Guys, we're witches.
We're
I
witches.
just came by to tell you guys are actually really great witches.
My wife would verify that. She'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
That makes
He's a
sense.
man witch, for sure.
I like now that we're just like deciding witches are just lazy.
Witches are so lazy.
They're just lazy. Oh wow.
man.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I have to look more into this moon cycle stuff, but that makes sense to me. There is a natural rhythm to the way things should be, and obviously our bodies respond to that, to forces that we don't even pay attention to half the time. So,
Well, if you think scientifically about it, our bodies are composed of almost 80% water.
moon dust.
You know,
Moon dust.
no water, and the moon has a tremendous sway on the ocean's tide. So obviously, as the moon, its cycles affect our bodies physically as well as emotionally and mentally, and so there is a connection there that can be made.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also like. Don't they say that hospitals and stuff on full moons they're fuller, like because people are doing
wouldn't doubt it.
crazier
That's a true thing,
thing. But I also wonder if it's like during full. What is that? I have to remember now in my research. Full moon is when you're like charged up. Well, that makes sense. I was going to go the opposite. Like,
Well, that's
maybe
where
they
the
should
term lunacy comes from. It's the root word of lunacy is lunar, and people would say on full moons people act a little
full
bit more
moon
hyper.
tonight, yeah.
This is the werewolf stuff. I mean, my dogs are definitely act way goofier and way more energetic on a full moon. My sister was a teacher for a number of years, and she was like, you could tell when it's the full moon because all the kids are more hyper, and I've kind of tracked that a little bit, and you're right. I think that there are like I'm sure if we look this up, but I think that it is like there are more accidents, there's more car accidents, there's more like the hospitals do like get more people coming in on full moons. So weird, right?
It's so weird. And
so what are we supposed to be doing on a full moon? Is that productivity time?
Or is that creation time?
That's creation time. Yeah. Like funneling that into creating something, which is why we could also create death and craziness and accidents and hurting ourselves.
All right, I guess. All right, if I'm gonna build a robot, I got to do it on a full moon. Sounds good.
Should we only start recording episodes on the full moon?
Oh my god! Then
you a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Do like just a 12-hour. I'd be surprised. You guys would probably have tons of energy, and it would feel.
When's the next full moon?
Or
let's
can
do
you,
a
can
session.
you guys like do a Ouija session on a full moon?
Oh
Can we do like a round table?
Well, people
scared
would
of that.
freak out of doing an. I mean, I would definitely do one, but people are scared of. I remember years ago on Coast to Coast, George Norrie was going to do an Ouija board session on the radio, and people called in and freaked out, and they're like, "Don't do it because you could unleash." Something over the radio that could affect everybody. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And like people protested, and so he never did it. But I always thought that would have been really, really cool.
Oh,
But is that true? Like, because they just need frequency in order to communicate. So maybe we just pick up the communication.
I think there's a lot of people who are pretty just scared of the paranormal and consider the Ouija board evil. So, yeah. Bryce's hand goes up.
Does it scare you?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to contact anything.
Did you used to do like the Candyman in the mirror growing up?
No, I mean, I was afraid. I know about the
Bloody Mary. We did Bloody Mary.
Yeah. But you know that has to be the retina of your eye, because you know when the lights are on and then you close it, you see like a shape.
Come again?
Like if we were to turn off the lights in here right now and close our eyes, like you see some type of shape.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
And it usually has a red like tint to it.
Right.
When so I'm wondering if that's just what I always wondered.
But when
if
it's
that
holding
was,
a knife at your throat and going,
Bryce, I'm going to get you, motherfucker!
then it's not just red tint.
It's not
just
just your
retina.
eyes tricking you.
Oh boy. Okay, Alicia, we have a game that we like to play with our guests. It's called Bullshit
Or Believe It.
Nice.
I feel good about this one.
That was pretty good.
All right,
guys.
I feel good with Alicia on this one.
Before we start this, because I've listened to, if there's some things that I don't know, can you give like a 2-word or like give a brief description? So also for listeners, if they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just do like me and just say believe it. When in question, when in doubt, just believe.
And you know, none of this is set in stone, so don't think too hard about it.
Oh, I
Until
won't.
Michael yells at you for it's believe it.
Yeah.
It's either bullshit or believe it.
You have
it's
to
not set in
say-
stone though. But just do it
You
right.
have to say you do have to say the correct words.
Yes.
Okay. On your mark.
Yes.
Get set. Ghosts.
Believe.
UFOs.
Believe.
It.
Believe it.
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Believe it.
Angels.
Believe it.
Gnomes.
Believe it.
Fairies.
Believe it.
You're doing great, Alicia.
Unicorns.
Bullshit.
Loch Ness Monster.
Believe it.
Little gray aliens.
Believe it.
Dog Man.
Bullshit.
Parallel universes.
Believe it.
Shapeshifters.
Believe it.
Mermaids.
Bullshit.
Heaven.
Believe it.
Hell.
Believe it.
Dragons.
Believe it.
Yeti.
Believe it.
Elves.
Believe it.
ESP.
Awesome.
Believe it.
Chupacabra.
Believe it, because I don't know what it is.
It's a goat sucker. It's like
Not a helpful description.
it's a little creature that
sucks the blood.
sucks the blood of
Yes.
livestock.
Okay. Believe it.
Okay.
Yep.
Demons.
Believe it.
Atlantis.
Believe it.
Life on other planets.
Believe it.
World peace.
Believe it.
Peace in the multiverse.
Believe it.
Great.
I believe
Awesome.
a lot of things.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Awesome.
You really
I
perked
got
up.
married on top of Atlantis.
Oh, that's wild.
Really?
Yeah, I
Where?
got married in the Dominican Republic, and part of the Dominican, they believe that Atlantis is under that area.
Cool.
And you guys,
cool.
the stuff that happened on our wedding.
Well, I was going to say you really perked up when I said Atlantis. So, and we
might-
don't get a lot of
yeah.
commentary about Atlantis from
You
our
might be
guests.
an
So,
Atlantean high priestess in a former life.
I was very drawn to the place. We got married at midnight. Some people's watches stopped working right when we got married.
Oh, cool.
It was so cool. We had a meteor shower. We decided to get married at midnight, and I guess
a kraken rose out of the ocean and ate half of our guests.
You had
You're really setting the bar high.
You had
for
mentioned
weddings
Edgar
here.
Casey, and I
crazy.
have a great book on it's called Edgar Casey on Atlantis, and more so than Plato, who was kind of the first person to describe or announce what Atlantis was. Edgar Casey had a whole entire writings and he would call them readings on Atlantis, and some of our most kind of like descriptive details of Atlantis and its inhabitants came from Edgar Casey. It's an incredible book, and
I need to get it.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research before we got married and while we were down there, and I collected a lot of stones from when we were there. And it was pretty magical. There were some like crazy things that happened during the week that we were
Like
there.
what?
Just certain animals that came out and the certain meanings.
Hello.
Hello, exactly. We were
The starfish is
the
wearing a top hat
starfish.
and a monocle.
It made a lot of believers out of people that weren't believers. Like I brought in all of like this. I sound so woo woo.
No.
You're
But
on the right show for that.
I had a lot of my energy healers, and we got married by my spiritual guide, angel person. And I think having all of them in the area, also where Atlantis was, a lot of things.
Atlantis was lit.
It was lit. It was
Have you ever
fun.
seen UFOs?
Okay. No, and I'm really mad about this. So when you and I
Right, this comes full
met-
circle now. You're talking about contact. Yeah, we met through Brie Blair.
Yes.
And you had just done, I think you had just watched that Stephen Greer
I'd watched so many.
Netflix
Unacknowledged.
thing. Because you had been auditioning for Project Blue Book.
Yes, and I went down a hole and watched, I
that.
think, like 3 or 4
Right.
a night.
Right.
And then I became really upset that I've never been contacted.
You've never seen,
I've seen
a
some-
craft or weird lights in the
Yeah,
sky?
I've seen some weird lights and stuff, but I feel like it always like came back to like there was something that could
A
be
plausible explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Kentucky, and I used to call it cloud kicking. Like how I would pass the time is literally lay on my roof and stare at clouds
Oh, I
and
love
like
that.
long for something to come out. But I don't know if I have so much of the longing that I haven't ever really seen them.
I feel like you're such a good candidate for like
Right? Well, that's what I want to know.
contacting a UFO
Well, you know,
or like
I discuss-
summoning a UFO.
Yeah, I
or an
discussed
orb.
on last week's episode. There's Stephen Greer has something called the CE5, which is the human initiated contact, and he goes through kind of a protocol about how somebody can initiate or summon a UFO, and it's basically just in while you're meditating. Well, you go somewhere where you think you could see when you meditate, and then you kind of like you hone in on your position, and then you sort of like visually you move outward. So from here to the to the city to the country, like if you're on Google Earth and you're sort of hitting that minus button, zooming out, and once you're out into the ether of space, you sort of like have a summoning message, and then you hone back in on where you are. You're basically sending out a beacon message.
And is there proof in this book that that's worked?
He said there's been
Well, he said it.
well, no,
He said it
well, he
works.
does these outings too. He does these outings where he has some really verifiable success in doing so. God, I've read some of the stories that are pretty crazy about his success. But yeah, apparently he says it works. So I've never tried it.
I've tried. I always joke, and I'm like, I talk to aliens whenever. Have you guys ever done a sound bath?
No, I want
have,
to though. Yeah,
The Integratron and Joshua Tree.
Yeah, I did the Integratron
Yeah,
and
nice.
Joshua Tree, and that was a wonderful, crazy experience. And I feel like in that hour and a half, like I'll be like, oh, this is nice sound, and I can actually feel the sound healing. That it is a sound healing, but I'll have like little glimpses of like, oh, that was just some like alien stuff that
well,
we
the
tapped
blueprints
into.
were given to
I
the
had
owner of
similar.
that, George Van Tassel, by
Yeah.
aliens. So
So there was definitely something there.
I
And
say
then-
that so lightly.
Yeah,
so
you're like,
I mean, that's
so,
probably
I mean,
why
obviously.
that happened.
I mean, true. Then Howard Hughes jumped in, funded it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. No, he was having a contact experience. The guy, he was, I think he was an Air Force pilot or whatever. Anyway,
He's an engineer, yeah.
engineer, yeah, and he had contact experiences, multiple ones where they told him to build this center where they would communicate him through sound and through energy healing. He'd be able to heal through energy and vibration.
I so believe it. I do sound baths like monthly, and it helps with my knees. There's this great place downtown, and the guy is so good. And if you go to a person who's really good at doing all the gongs and the stuff and the sound bowls, it does feel like you're, for me, being an auditory person, I'm like, maybe I am.
Do you ever like go to like YouTube and do like 432 hertz or like there's like healing frequencies?
My husband plays that a lot for Vita in the morning.
I dig those out. Yeah.
And I do think there's something, there is, I align to something when that's happening. Like I can feel a circular vibration kind of happening.
Yeah. Riley, I feel like you could make a good like 432 hertz healing meditation thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty
with some
into that whole
guitar solo.
I should just tune down the sound machine to 432 instead of 440. That's that whole thing is another topic all on its own.
Right.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
You guys know about cymatics?
What's that?
It's this like sort of scientific experiment where you can visualize frequency. So you'll take a plate, like a metal plate, and you put sand on it.
Oh yes,
and then you put a frequency
that.
to the plate, and the sand will move based on the way that the waves overlap and change with each other.
Geometric patterns.
It creates incredible geometric patterns. Yeah,
that is a wild trip.
Yeah, and certain frequencies you can see create these beautiful, perfect structures, and other frequencies are just sort of scattered chaos.
Wow.
And
Well, it was Nikola Tesla who said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, understand frequency and vibration.
Yep, that's my dog.
Wow. Speaking of geometrical shapes and things,
yes, Michael.
Segue.
Anyways, didn't I see Bryce on Instagram? You were conducting an experiment in your freezer with water.
Oh yeah, I had to get rid of it today.
What happened?
It smelled like baby vomit.
That's the results, baby vomit.
So I love the works of a guy named Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he wrote a book called Hidden Messages in Water. And what he would do is he would take these frozen droplets of water and he would put them under a microscope, and then he'd have like a Buddhist monk chant like healing love vibes to them, or then he would play heavy metal to one. And then he would just ignore some others. And the photographs of the crystalline structures of these water molecules, first of all, they change. Like, for instance, when they were blessed by monks or chanting prayers, they came out into these beautiful, like, crystalline structures. I mean, incredible. And whereas opposed to like, if that monk were to do like Satan or the devil, something like that, or negative energy, then they would be like broken up structures and almost blurry and like incomplete.
Okay, so let's go back to what you were doing in your kitchen.
So I saw I recently read about how he did the experiment with rice. So he'd put, he got 3 glasses and he put rice in them with water. And on one glass, he labeled thank you. On the other glass, he labeled you're an idiot. And then on the third glass, he would just ignore altogether. And so I was like, oh, well, this is an experiment I can actually try, because I didn't have like a microscope and I couldn't, do the actual, water molecule thing. So I tried that. I set it up. And then,
wait, so what, is the rice supposed to congeal or not congeal or do something different?
Yeah,
how do you get results?
Well, in his experiment, so he would do a 30-day experiment, and then every day for 30 days, he would say thank you to one glass, you're an idiot to the other, and completely ignore the one.
Mommy, why is our weird neighbor talking to a glass full of rice?
I got my daughter in it on it too. I was like, hey, you want to come talk to this rice water? And she's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then so I did it on. And, but unfortunately it started to like reek of like baby vomit. And so my wife was like, get that out of here now. And so I actually took pictures of the results. It was, interestingly enough, the ones that were like, thank you and you're an idiot were relatively the same. But the one I ignored, there was visible results that it was like coagulated more nastily, I guess would be the word. And so it was definitely different than the ones that I was talking to.
Could that potentially be though because you just didn't touch that one? It didn't move?
Well, I didn't touch any of them. No,
okay,
they sat. Right. I put them in on our third bathroom in the.
He didn't touch them, Riley. He just talked to them.
I talked to them.
Pulled it out to speak to it.
No, and I'd get into it. I'd be like, "Thank you so much, water." I'm like, "You're a fucking idiot, water. You stupid rice water."
That's the sound of Bryce Bryce's wife's suitcase zipping up. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time for High Strangeness.
As if that wasn't strange enough.
Hey guys, Bryce here. I'm working on a brand new secret project about none other than, yep, you guessed it, Bigfoot. And I need your help. If you, yes you, have ever seen the elusive beast, I want to hear about it. I'm looking for first-person accounts of actual Bigfoot sightings. So if that's you, please email me at BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com and use the subject line, Bryce's Bigfoot Sightings. Or maybe you know of someone else who has crossed paths with the big guy. In that case, encourage them to write in. Just be sure to leave your contact information, as well as a detailed description of your Sasquatch sighting, and you may be hearing from me. Thanks in advance. Now, back to the show.
And we're back, and it's time for High Strangeness.
You know I love this part.
All right. Well, Bryce.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the Black-Eyed Kids?
No.
Oh, is it what the paintings are based off of?
Oh, we'll talk.
Okay, let's talk.
Black-eyed children, or black-eyed kids, or BEKs, are mysterious entities that allegedly resemble children between the ages of 6 and 12. They only show up at night, knocking on the front doors and sometimes windows of unsuspecting victims.
Oh, hell no.
They often speak in strange, breathless, monotone voices and ask to be let in. Like Men in Black, these entities seem to dress in outdated styles and clothing and use strange phrases when speaking. Where their eyes should be is instead a black void. During 2013 and 2014, the Black-Eyed Kids reached peak popularity as the subject of creepypasta, copy and pasted stories passed around the internet, leaving many to believe that, like Slender Man, the BEKs are simply the dark fruits grown by gothic teens with vivid macabre imaginations. But stories of black-eyed children go back long before tales of black-eyed kids started appearing on the internet in the late 90s.
Gothic teens are like, oh man,
Dude, really?
thought that was ours for sure.
Yeah. The Iroquois tribe believed in an evil energy that would impregnate women, giving birth to pale-skinned, black-eyed infants. In 1972, two men in France encountered a group of pale, short humanoids alongside a country road with stringy black hair, pale skin, and black eyes. In 1982, the Daily Star tabloid in England wrote stories of a Staffordshire pub in Cannock Chase in the UK that was haunted by a demonic, black-eyed child, along with the spirit of a soldier and a jilted woman called Emily who sobs in toilets.
Hold my hair.
But the modern legends of BEKs, as we know them today, began with at least one encounter that we know did indeed happen, at least according to the witness who encountered the mysterious creatures. This account first appeared in the mid-90s on Google message boards on what was referred to back then as the net. While many BEK stories found online could be the works of fiction written by anonymous people, this man, Brian Bethel, is a real person who has gained very little by sharing his story and has stuck to it since going public with the tale. So, what happened to Brian Bethel?
Oh.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, what did happen to him?
You're about to find out, and it is spooky. In 1996, Brian Bethel was a reporter living in the small town of Abilene, Texas, when he came into direct contact with the entities known as the Black-Eyed Kids. It was a late spring or early summer night. Brian was parked in the vacant lot of Camelot Communications, Abilene's internet provider at the time, and he was planning on writing a check and dropping off his bill in the overnight mail slot. Brian was parked at the end of the vacant lot near the local movie theater, using the light of the movie theater's marquee to write his check. The movie playing that week...
Big mistake.
The movie playing that week was Mortal Kombat.
Even bigger mistake.
As Brian went about his business, there was a tap on the driver's side window. Startled, Brian turned to see two boys between the ages of 9 and 12 gazing at him. They were wearing hoodies with the hoods pulled up over their heads. Brian assumed that they were going to ask him for money, so he cracked his window, and suddenly became overwhelmed with what he called an incomprehensible, soul-racking fear. I had no idea why. One boy was olive-skinned, and Brian could see dark curls spooling out from underneath his hood. The other boy was pale, freckled, and redheaded. This one lingered in the background. The olive-skinned boy told Brian that they needed a ride. They were going to see a movie but had forgotten their money at their mother's house, and they needed to go back and get it. Brian asked, "What movie are you going to see?" The boy responded, "Mortal Kombat, of course."
Mortal Kombat!
Brian looked up at the marquee and he realized that the final showing of that film had already started playing. So he figured, they're bullshitting me. But that irrational fear still had a grip on him. The two boys looked at one another as if they realized that their plan wasn't working. "Come on, let us in. It won't take long. We don't have a gun or anything. Come on, mister. We're just two little kids." Brian looked down and realized that his hand had been straying towards the lock of his door. He yanked back his hand and said that what happened next was one of the eeriest moments he will remember for the rest of his life. "In the short time I had broken the gaze of the spokesman, something had changed." And he called the olive-skinned boy the spokesman. "In the short time I had broken the gaze of the spokesman, something had changed, and my mind exploded in a vortex of all-consuming terror. Both boys stared at me with coal-black eyes, the sort of eyes one sees these days on aliens or bargain basement vampires on late-night television. Soulless orbs like two great swaths of starless night. I did what I feel any rational person would do. I full-on freaked out inside while trying to appear completely sane and calm." Brian gathered himself and apologized to the boys, making an excuse to leave. "I apologized to the kids. I made whatever excuses came to mind, all of them designed to get me the hell out of there. Fast." The aura of fear was now a palpable, black hanging thing, almost as if reality itself was warping around me. I wrapped my hand around the gear shift, threw the car into reverse, and began to roll up the window, apologizing all the while. I love that he's still just trying to be polite.
Must
It's
have
like,
been
dude,
Canadian.
they don't have eyes. Give them-
Sorry, I gotta go. So sorry.
He's a Texan. They have no eyes. Get the fuck out of there.
Seriously.
My fear must have been evident. The boy in the back wore a look of confusion. The olive-skinned boy, the one that Brian now refers to as the spokesman, started banging on the window angrily. "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in."
Vampiric.
Brian sped away in fear. I'm surprised I didn't sideswipe a car or two along the way. I stole a quick look in my rearview mirror before peeling out into the night. The boys were gone. Even if they had run, I don't believe that there was any place they could have hidden from view that quickly. Brian went home and called his buddy Chad, who was a ghost hunter. Chad just happened to be hanging out with a psychic friend that night who got on the phone when she overheard Chad mentioning something about black-eyed kids. She informed Brian that she had had a dream earlier that week about black-eyed children knocking on her door. And she informed Brian that if he had let the boys into his car, he would be dead by now.
Chad's like, "Wait, Debbie, what'd you say? Hold on, Debbie, come over here. Talk to Brian really quick."
So what are these black-eyed kids? Vampires? Demons? Aliens?
All of the
Interdimensional beings? Countless tales of encounters, too many to unpack here, all claim the same detail that these children, or the beings disguising themselves as children, prey upon people's empathy, often showing up at their doors on cold nights, asking to be let in to use the phone, or asking for a ride home. In one strange case, a BEK even asked to use a telegraph.
Oh.
Strange indeed. In 2013 and 14, accounts of ghostly children made a resurgence in the Cannock Chase in Staffordshire. That was the pub where that lady ghost was crying in toilets. These accounts are from a Huffington Post UK article dated October 15th, 2014. One witness says, on Saturday the 13th of September, my wife and I were walking through Cannock Chase near to Style Cop with our dog. I don't know what Style Cop is. Once we had entered the woodland and the road was no longer visible, we started to hear the giggling noise of a little girl. To our amazement, a child, no taller than 1 meter in height, appeared as if out of nowhere further up the path in front of us. We stopped dead in our tracks after noticing her eyes had no color. Her head was tilted to the side, much in the same way it would appear if she had been hung. Or hanged, I would guess. She stared at us for about 5 minutes before running away into a densely grouped area of trees. My wife wanted to follow her, but I was having none of it. Another witness told HuffPo UK about the same area. Around 2 months ago, my daughter and I were walking through Birches Valley, an area well known for its spectral sightings, when we heard the screams of a young child. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, but they definitely seemed to be in distress and sounded very close to us, so we instantly started running toward the noise. We couldn't find the child anywhere, and so stopped to catch our breath. That's when I turned around and saw a girl stood behind me, no more than 10 years old, with her hands over her eyes like she was waiting for a birthday cake. I asked if she was okay, and if she had been the one screaming. Then she put her arms down by her side and opened her eyes, which is when I saw that they were completely black. No iris, no white, nothing.
I thought you were going to say, I asked her if she was waiting for a birthday cake.
Happy birthday.
All right, totally.
I jumped back and grabbed my daughter, and when I looked again, the child was gone. It was strange, really. I knew something was going to happen. Even before it did, I just had a weird feeling. So even if the Black Eyed Kids are considered by many to be urban legends today, for Brian Bethel and these witnesses, they are very real. Should you find yourself at home alone one night, on a cold, chilly evening, or parked in a vacant lot in a small town, if a group of young kids knock on your door or tap on your window, whatever you do not let them in.
You're here.
For more BEK stories, check out the link in our show notes or simply Google Black Eyed Children and knock yourself out. There are plenty out there. If you want to take a BEK deep dive, I highly recommend the podcast Astonishing Legends, which did a 3-part series on the subject back in 2017. Ooh. And contributed to research for this. Really, they really go into it. They have a lot of time to do it.
For some reason, what kept coming up for me was like, did they have rabies? Like, what kind of how is there any scientific reason that an eyeball would go black?
Right. I don't think so. I think that there's sometimes your eyes can be that they say that severe head trauma can cause blood to pool in the eyes, but you wouldn't be conscious. You wouldn't be talking. You wouldn't be up around and walking.
They say the eyes are the window to the soul.
That's what they say. Yeah. I mean, I think that this is a tough one. If we were going to put this in a bullshit or believe it category, I think a lot of the stories out there,
tough for you maybe,
are bullshit. I think there is a lot of creepypasta fan fiction about this stuff out there, but I do. The story that comes up again and again, and watching interviews with Brian Bethel, the reporter from Abilene, Texas, I really believe he had this encounter. They had a episode of Monsters and Mysteries in America with him on it, and this guy's he's actually gotten to the point where he doesn't talk about it anymore. He's kind of done talking about it, but you genuinely believe that this guy experienced something very, very creepy with these kids. Sure. And there are a lot of other stories that are out there of people claiming to have encountered them that seem like legitimate witnesses. So I put it, I believe it for Brian Bethel, and then the rest you kind of have to use your judgment, because there literally is fictitious accounts out there just written for fun entertainment.
Well, I also just, as being a parent, I'm like, are they possessed? Could you imagine if all of a sudden your daughter had black eyes? Right. But the fact that they always disappear, I feel like they're
it sounds to me like, my sort of take on it is that, whatever this supernatural entity that is parlaying in and around the woods or the parking lots of this area, this is a way it's learned to manifest itself. And these things change. They change over time and over culture. And it reminded me of some old fairy lore, luring kids into the fairy realm, and even that like crying in the woods, or like
there are a lot of encounters with these where they talk about hearing the like woman screaming, or a baby cry, or a bobcat scream.
Well, and that's to, like what you were saying, is to play off one's empathy, and what better way to play off someone's empathy than to use children.
Well, and that's the idea, is that whatever this entity is trying to, and kind of failing at passing off as human. They use kind of a weird phrases like, we're just little kids, let us, like, we're nothing to see. It's kind of like wink wink. They're almost a little too conspicuous. They can't, and in these stories, like the grinning man, like in Indrid Cold, that there's always something just a little off. Like Indrid Cold's smile was a little too forced. His eyes were a little wide set. Like there's something about trying to achieve that image, that visage of humanity, that they can't quite get. And it seems to be that whatever they want, there is some sort of law or higher power that is preventing them. In one story that I read or listened to, they were talking about how they felt like there was almost an invisible force field between the doorway of the threshold of the doorway where these entities were standing and their house, that they literally couldn't walk. And that's very vampire.
Very vampire. You have to invite them in order for them to come in and do their business.
Was any story where they invited them in? Was there any completion story?
I was going to say, you're missing half of this story, and those are the Bryans that actually opened up the car door. I don't think we're hearing from them.
You don't hear from them.
Well, that's the other thing, is like they said, they actually talked about that on that Astonishing Legends, where they're like, maybe some people have and we haven't heard from them because they're no longer with us. There was one story that I heard that was that I read about a woman who left her son in the car, ran into the gas station, came out, and there was a black-eyed kid sitting next to her son in the back seat.
What?
And then supposedly the I can't remember, I think she went back in the gas station, was like, there's this kid creeping around in my car. That little boy, apparently, according to this story, her son got like really, really sick after that. And they went to like a number of healers and priests, and it took a while, but eventually they got a lot. There's stories of like people who did let them in, the bad things started happening to them afterwards, and they all attribute it to the encounters that they had. And she said that like his symptoms kept changing. A doctor would go, "Oh, I think it's this," and then the symptoms would. And she was like, she and her husband were like, "It's because of that kid. It was because we let that kid in the car."
This is the shit that really scares me. It's like when your soul's up for grabs. You know what I mean? Like life is so short and fleeting, and then we often hear about the eternity that takes place afterwards, and whatever that sort of life force is left after we pass on this physical realm, it's like you don't want it to be like in the wrong hands of something or someone, you know, and just lying in that eternal. I don't know. It's creepy.
No, it's weird.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that.
Just don't let them in. Don't let them in.
Or find the feng shui guy.
Yeah.
And maybe we could start changing all these guys.
Right.
I definitely want to talk to that guy.
McConaughey would let him in. Come on in.
All right.
The thing I like about these black-eyed kids, I get older, they stay the same age. All right, everybody. That's another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club. ALYSHIA OSCHSE, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
At ALYSHIA OSCHSE on everything's. All the things,
yes.
And your podcast again, That One Audition.
That One Audition, yes.
Which I am a huge fan of. If you are fascinated, like I am, with the intricate inner workings of Hollywood and people's tales of how they got to the jobs that we so often admire, and I love the failure stories. I know you do too, but I just love your work on that podcast. I think it's so wonderful. Check it out, even if you're not an actor or an actress or someone in the entertainment industry.
I was listening to it this week in preparation of today's episode, and I'm like, this is very calming and soothing, and I appreciate your positive reinforcement.
Amen.
I think I need to start listening to that on the regs for sure. Quick Collector's Corner before we go. Does anybody have something that they're into this week that they want to plug, or anything coming up, events coming up? We, of course, have our first live show at Contact in the Desert in Indian Wells. Wait,
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, California on Saturday, June 1st, 2:30. If you want to get tickets to the event, we'll be in one of the conference rooms. All that information is up at contactinthedesert.com. I will be at the Ontario Comic Book Convention at the end of May 18th and 19th, signing Adventure Van. So we've got that coming up. Radio City Music Hall, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend live in concert in New York on the 14th and 15th. Boys, anything Spindrift playing? We got.
You are so much better at remembering dates and venues, man.
Although we know from texting that that's not true.
Not when you write it down. But Spindrift just got booked at the Psycho Music Festival in Las Vegas.
Oh, cool. When's that?
I have no idea. It's coming up.
Awesome.
As I said, not as good at that. But Megadeth is headlining. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice.
It's going to be epic. So
awesome.
come to that.
And Bryce, you have a special request from our audience, don't you?
Yeah, if you haven't heard it on our pre-recorded message in the break, I am looking for first-hand accounts of Bigfoot sightings for a project I'm working on that I can't wait to tell you about. So if you have seen Bigfoot firsthand, then please email me at BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com. Use Bryce's Bigfoot sightings. I will be reaching out to you because I want to hear all about it. So please do that. Or if you know of someone who has, encourage them to write in.
Awesome. And for our Collector's Corner moment, I brought you boys another gift from Hopkinsville.
Really?
This is a book called The Kelly Green Men Alien Legacy Revisited. And it's written by Geraldine Sutton Stith, who was one of the little girls in the Sutton family who encountered these creatures.
Alicia, are you familiar with this story?
After listening to your guys' podcast.
And you're from Kentucky.
And I'm from Kentucky.
Oh my God.
I was so sad that I did not know about this
Okay,
before.
there's something you have to watch. This is recommended viewing.
Yes.
It's called Hellier, and it's by Greg and Dana Newkirk from the Planet Weird and the Paramuseum. They did a 5-part miniseries documentary on sort of a reemergence of the Hopkinsville Goblin, and it is dynamite. It's called Hellier. You can find it on YouTube or hellier.tv.
Okay, thank
Free
you.
plug.
Yeah, so this book will go into
That's awesome. One of my
our
favorite libraries.
clubhouse library, and feel free to check it out anytime you boys would like.
Awesome.
Look at it while I'm editing.
All right.
Guys,
All right.
thank you so
Alicia,
much.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
this
thank
has been
you.
great.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you.
so good to see you again.
Let's go get some stones.
Let's do it.
Let's get stoned.
Let's
get
charge
some
our
stones.
crystals.
Let's go to Atlantis. Let's
And
all
have
get married
a
at
good
midnight.
wedge.
Great.
Yeah.
And see Mortal Kombat.
All right. We'll be, real quick, next week we will not have a regular episode. It's our 1-year anniversary of our Patreon page, which has now been rechristened The Other Side. So we're going to have a Patreon sample episode from our backlog for our listeners. We've got a really good episode where Bryce interviews Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot.
Awesome.
And we're going to throw that up there. We might throw in up a couple more bonus episodes to just kind of get your guys' appetites wet for the
You said throw up.
for our Patreon page. And then, of course, our Patreon listeners, we will have something new for you guys per usual next Wednesday as well. So something new for everybody.
Yay.
All right. And then we'll be back with a regular episode in 2 weeks. Until then, go get regressed.
Hey, that's good. That works.
Nice.
Catchphrase.
Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced by Riley Bray. Our theme song is Come Alone by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps get the podcast to more listeners. To support the show, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club and unlock multiple reward episodes every month.